Friends, welcome to another episode of Work, Life, Play. Today, my guest is Doug Ament, executive coach and friend. Doug doesn't have all the answers. He actually is really good at asking questions. Back in the heyday of the 1990s, he was a partner in San Diego-based most successful or one of the most successful yacht dealerships in the world until it all went sideways. So he's got a few things to offer us as terms of wisdom. So in the world that we're living in today with uncertainty, a lack of predictability, and lots of people facing career upsets and challenges. So in his case, when they shut their business down, he distilled down a handful of lessons. And I asked him if he'd be willing to fire up the mic and let's share that with you guys today. So his lessons really help to provide us anchor points for how to navigate uncertainty and when we lose sight of the shore in life and in business. So some of his key takeaways that he'll share is about why spiritual development really matters, why exercise was a steady handline he used through the course of his own upset in 2008, 2009, how mentors and directors really became key in providing sound direction and encouragement, and how at the end of the day, like family, humor, and remembering what's really important really helped level out a lot of the bumps in life. I know you'll enjoy this. You can do this. It's good for you. Keep going. Okay, Doug, tell me about 2008, 2009, and about your reflections. We were on the phone the other day, and you were saying that in the market crash of 08, 09, your life and business changed, and you drew a lot of lessons from that you're finding could be helpful, not only to yourself and to me as my coach today, but also to others. So we thought we'd fire up the mic and invite others into the conversation. So take us back to 08 and 09. Tell us about your life and your work.
I ran a business, started in 89 in the last downturn on retail business selling yachts in California. So started with a small two of us, built it up kind of when the whole market blew up in 91, 92, 93. Real estate back then, bad deal. We were the only guys left standing. And so we were able to survive it, but also grow our business, and grew from there through, I'm going to say 07, probably best year, $70 million in new boat sales up and down the coast in California, 7 different stores. Things began to turn in 07, probably hit us last. It hits starts in the East Coast, tends to wave across the West Coast. And 08 started to get pretty painful, put a bunch of money back in the business, but came to the conclusion through some good advice and counsel for some others that I'll chat about in a minute. This is it. This is not a baby. This is a business. And really about May 19th, we recognized we are not going to survive. And so went into kind of a 30-day, how do we unwind this? How do we blow it up? And, on June 19th, 2009, we pulled had 150 employees, went down to about 50, pulled everybody in on that Friday and said, we're done. Our choice up to that point was to keep it confidential amongst the three of us, CFO, CEO, and me, my partner and I. And totally painful, total sense of failure. We had gone from being excellent in our industry, by far the largest sailboat dealer in the world, and to dead horse. And so absolutely, that's a quick, snapshot of what happened. Super painful. That was so much of that was my business career, 25 years in the boat business, 20 plus owning my own. And I'd say 20 great years and one absolutely devastating one. So the takeaways, and this came after time, right? There's lots of lessons in the middle of that. The takeaways that I would throw out that helped me survive it, and I would say even thrive through it, to the point now where I would, if I could turn back and know history, I would change some things, but it is what it is. And the things that I think allowed me to survive it was, one, just a sense of spiritual foundation, and that who I am is not what I do. And that's easier said than done. I use the concept of, we don't really think our business card matters to us until we lose it.
Yeah, and I want you to tell that story, because you told me that story early on, a couple of years ago when we were working together, because as I had just left my career of 13 years and as a software executive, and you and I were talking about that, and you were saying that all of a sudden in your local community with friends, with like you just didn't have a business card, like physically in your back pocket, and just the journey you had to go on to answer that question, who am I? So take us into that.
The good part is that those questions I wrestled with before the end of my business, but to the point where I would say before it ended, I go, okay, it's not that important to me that I own a business or I'm president of this or whatever our titles are. Well, I believed that until I lost it. And then it became very clear to me that, so much of my identity and so much of my worth and who I was came back to the business card. Not that you hand that out, but you start a conversation. What do you do in America? And that's kind of what most guys start with. And it's a measurement. It's a competitiveness. It's just our identity. And not all good, not all bad, but clearly when you lose it, it becomes really poignant, or it became really poignant to me. And I had to, that's afterwards, but that was 2 to 3 years of wrestling with, hey, who am I, to the point where I didn't care what other people thought. When I said, hey, I like to say I'm an unemployed boat salesman, and to not care what other people thought, that's been a process, not a light bulb for me anyway.
Spiritual development was one of the starting places that you framed that as, and then just answering that question, who am I, and where's my sense of security and self come from?
Yeah, so for me, that's been a lifelong grounding of my faith in Christ and how He views me as His beloved Son, and He doesn't view me as a boat salesman and what I do. He loves me as I like the analogy of, like, I adore my grandchildren, and they're not perfect, but they are absolutely perfect, if that makes sense, in their own unique imperfections. They're just perfect in my eyesight, and that's how I believe God views me. And this just became more real for me through this process of watching a business die, killing the business, and then moving on after it. That became critical, that I had a sense of spiritual foundation that was deeper than what I did. So I would say that was number one. Second thing for me that got me through it, and everybody's unique, but got me through it, is I was turning 50 at the very end of 2008, and I wanted to do a triathlon. So I started training the last 6 months prior, and it's a funny story, but we shut the business down on June 19th. My first triathlon was June 20th. So it was that Saturday. So coincidence or whatever.
That's probably something really good to have to sink your teeth into, though. I bet
those 6 months leading up to the end of the business, absolutely, it allowed me to stay healthy. It allowed me to not self-medicate with other things. It got me focused on being super healthy, super strong, being the best shape I could possibly be in my life, and do something unique and different. And so my wife and I both did that on the 20th of June 2009, the day after we shut the business down. So third thing that came to my mind, or as I reflect back, both up until the end of the business and after, was having some very key mentors in my life. So I had a business coach that had been with me for 8 years. He had helped me build our business up to its peak, and he helped me ride it down to the ground and
dismantle it all the way down. Yeah.
And he had some just incredible advice through that. And I think the two that stick out for me that helped me was, one, I never promised to put my employees to work for the rest of their lives. I promised to pay them for doing the work that we did and we were able to do.
That's a piece of advice that one of these mentors gave you.
Absolutely. As I think back to Raymond's advice to me, that was one that really stuck out, that gave me freedom, because you feel such a sense of failure of letting employees go and bringing them in and saying, guys, it's done. You got to go figure it out from here. I've taken you as far as I'm taking you, and I'm dropping you on your butt. And so tons of ownership of that and sense of failure in that. But the reminder that, hey, I didn't promise them a job for life. I promised to pay them for what they did for me up until whatever point that ended, and it ended at a certain date. And that gave me just a sense of ability to work through the sense of failure that still was all wrapped up in this, right? And so that was helpful. That was powerful. And then he also just saying, hey guys, most businesses do fail. And at the end of the day, we all want this big sell the business, make a bunch of money, and
Forbes magazine cover shot,
whatever zeros, it's all about zeros, right? And so
yes.
In our context, it would have been nice to have sold it for a bunch of money in 06 and 07 and sailed off into the sunset. Well, oops, we didn't. And his whole thing was, look, most guys don't. Most of them miss it. Most of them don't turn into big home runs. There's those Uber stories, or there's stuff out there, but most don't. So get over it.
Yeah.
And that was those were a couple pieces. And then I had two other guys. One, my doctor, who's my best friend. And then I had a business mentor that is a guy that just specializes in businesses that are going bad and how do you turn them. And he was just really pragmatic and helpful and looking at the numbers with me and giving me great legal counsel and accounting counsel that got me through it. So all that wrapped up to say, and people that mentor you that are involved in this journey with you. Two, have business people that are very smart and pragmatic and don't allow you to look at this business as something bigger than a business, meaning a baby, right? Or a marriage.
Yeah, right. Yeah, keep it in the container it's intended. So I want to ask you a couple of questions. So what I hear you saying is, so you have this first piece is what enabled for you to navigate 08 and 09. And the reason that we're retracing these steps is that we know that, I have neighbors that own retail businesses.
Yeah.
I know of a friend I can think of off the top of my head that was let go a week ago Friday after probably 8 or 10 year career. So there's lots. I have another buddy I can think of that is in the hospitality business and venues, and weddings are not happening, all those things. So we know that this is a current story that will resonate. And so as we retrace the steps back to 08 and 09 for you, and you're talking through kind of what helped you navigate this deeply painful upset that you would have never wanted, was spiritual life and exercise. What I also hear in the exercise piece also is basically a bigger story, a story to get outside. For the last 6 months while the business is spiraling the drain, you have a reason to get outside and swim, bike, and run. And versus, like you said, you could self-medicate in other ways, right? Bottles of whiskey or whatever that might be. And the nice thing about triathlon is that if you're a purist and you actually go all in, then you're counting calories and paying attention to all these things. So that's giving you a story to live into that's just an escape, really, a healthy escape from the pain. And then this piece about mentors, I guess what I'm curious about as I'm listening to you talk, I find it common that men and women can nod their head at, yes, I should have mentors. I should have people I get advice from, people that I trust, people I know. But what do you do if where you are today is you don't have any of those, and you've been, hands on the plow to such a degree with your work and life and family that you just, whether it hasn't presented itself from your view or you haven't spent time to invest in those? What do you do today? How do you begin to seed in? And what did you do to, over time, have a collection of people that you could actually call and trust?
Well, and those are, I view those as two alternatives. One is, if you don't have anybody now, this is a tough time. My history was, I've always had older men in my life. I've chosen to be involved in small groups of men's Bible studies, men's business groups, hired a coach for 8 years. So I've always been committed to having that. And so I just would encourage, it's out there. You just have to open your eyes and look and start asking questions and being intentional about going out and finding those people, because they're around you. There are older men that have been through these battles before. Go find smart, wise ones that are willing to be honest and vulnerable with you. So it takes your initiative. They're not going to come find you.
Right. That's the key right there.
You got to go after it, but they're there and they want to help. And there's incredible wisdom in just age, guys that have survived, the turn in 91, the 9/11, the 2000, the dot bomb, the 08, 09.
Right. Pick your upset.
Well,
Yeah.
the older the guy is, the more he has. You don't want to find somebody cynical that's just gotten angry and pissed. You want to find somebody that's figured out not how to just be purely successful through those, but is still alive and has navigated through them in some fashion of good fruit.
And so what I hear you saying also is it does require initiative.
Oh, totally.
So if that's something that you want, you have to pick up the phone, you have to reach out. And now you're that guy who at 62. So tell us about, if we were thinking of people that we would reach out to, what does it do for you now when younger guys reach out to you and actually do ask for your advice?
I'm all in. How can I help? I have the blessing of freedom and time, but I'm honored by it. I view it as a privilege, and I take it super seriously when younger guys want to be mentored or coached by me.
Yeah, so it's a big deal for you. I think the reason I want to name that is, like, a lot of times younger men and women can reason their way out of why not to do it, why not to reach out, why not to try, because, we'll be a bother, or that person doesn't have time, or they don't want to hear about my woes. And actually, what I've found, as you're saying, is it's actually largely the opposite. For those people that actually do enjoy that and aren't cynical, that they actually do enjoy younger people saying, hey, those war wounds you've mentioned a time or two when I've been around you, could you tell me more about those? Could I just ask you some questions? And I think that's the other thing too, I would just encourage for you guys listening, is that start with questions. Start with questions about, here's some things I'm grappling with, not in a way of like, I need you to fix me, or I need you to fix this, but these are questions I'm engaged in. These are challenges I'm holding. And I would just love to hear your perspective on, how did you encounter these along the way, versus the, hey, I've got a bowl full of anxiety, I was hoping I could serve it for lunch, and you, my mentor, would figure out what to do with it. That's usually not a helpful combination. But hey, Doug, tell me about your life. Tell me about when you were in 08 and 09 and you say you're an unemployed boat salesman. What does that actually mean? Tell me the story about that. And then all of a sudden it's more of a two-way interaction than just a, hey, I need you to fix something for me. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And it's a sense of, being teachable, being curious, and then picking guys that are willing, pick guys that have fallen and are at least willing, or at least we all have. The question is, are guys willing to be, older guys willing to be honest with it? And I think as we get older, absolutely, we're less prone to try to want to impress the young guy as much as we're willing to say, man, I get it. It's a battle. And here's my scars. Here's how I've gotten through it. And I think that's what happens with most guys as they get older. Their egos have gotten squished a few enough times to go that, that's a dead end street.
That's true about the good ones. I would agree with you.
We've all met the ones that are so full of themselves that they can't. All they want to do is say about all their successes. Don't go to those guys. You'll figure that out real quick.
So Doug, as I mentioned, as my coach, we got together in November, and there was how many other guys was there 6 of us total plus you?
Yeah.
All of us were coachees and were friends. So most of us knew each other, and we all went to British Columbia to Doug's place, and we came in on a bush plane, which was actually like one of the coolest things. What would you call it? Is it amphibious plane?
It's an amphib, yeah.
Yeah. And so we flew into British Columbia, to Vancouver, cruised out, grabbed the amphibious plane, and then cruised into his place. What was probably an hour flight or something like
30.
that? North?
Yeah, 30 minutes.
30 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was like, I felt like it was a Patagonia magazine. It was like the coolest thing. I was looking for the photographer. So we had the photographers. We have some cool photos I'll post with this. And then to this point, we spent, 4 days together? 4 nights, 5 days, something like that, and shared our life stories with each other. We have each worked on a life plan. I've got the book behind me with Mike Hyatt and Daniel Harkavy wrote about living forward. And so we shared some highlights from our life plan. And it was really cool too in our stories is that each of us have these highs and lows. The young guys, as well as for you, is like, hey, here's what I would call them 1s and 10s. here's the 10 moments in my life where I'm like pegging the needle of like Yahoo. I can't believe this is so cool. Whether that's family, friendship, triathlon, business, whatever it may be. And then there's these ones. And what's cool about that setting for us is that we could openly share about the ones and the twos and the threes. And that's the stuff that usually isn't on our LinkedIn profile or Facebook page or whatever. It's like you have to be pretty close in to know the full story of those. But it was super cool. And what I noticed is now we've continued that chatter between us, the six of us, at some version or another. We keep staying connected with each other. And I think that what was really cool is that one of your superpowers is bringing people together and being able to be open about the ones and the tens and everything in between. And that you're not professing some degree of like sage wisdom. Hey guys, I've got it all figured out. Just do what I do it in the way I do it, and it'll all go great for you. It's more about the words that you wrote down here on my sheet in front of me, is about how others help keep me sane and encouraged along the way. So say more about why do you coach today?
I believe it initially came out of seeing the fruits of it in my own life. When I was 43, I hired a guy and he walked with me for 8 years and just taught me a ton about life, pushed me. It's like the idea of a professional athlete always has coaches, right? At whatever level, the highest level guys have them. And that's what sold me on is, hey, I'd be nuts not to have somebody trying to push me in every area of my life. And so that model and some serendipitous experiences got me involved in coaching other guys, and not doing it for hire, but doing it because I just want to get back. And that's just a blessing. There's a group of us. In fact, we had a call this morning that's what we love doing. Some of the guys work, some of them are retired like me. And so we, have more capacity. So, sometimes the guys are my age, sometimes they're a lot younger, and try to be as helpful as I can in their journey as men have been helpful for me in my journey.
So it's like paying it forward. Yeah. Love it. The fourth point you had on your list here was family humor and remembering what's truly important. So say more about that.
Well, I always go to humor in that, one, I love to laugh. My marriage has lots of laughter in it. My family has lots of laughter, most of it appropriate, some of it not, just because it's healing, and if we can, it's like keeping it all in perspective. If we can find ways to, even in this crisis, we're seeing some of the crazy humor that people create because they have all this time and creative energy, and it makes you laugh. And when you laugh, you get healed. Life just doesn't become so serious. If you sit around and watch the news all day and focus on this current dilemma, it's like, is that all there is in life? No, there's some great stuff right now we have an opportunity to go after. Humor is part of it. Let's make each other laugh. Let's make each other not take ourselves and things so serious, even though this is a serious time, but we still can laugh in the midst of it. And I'm reminded of that. And during that time, that helped me be involved. And then being involved with family, being involved with other relationships, playing, enjoying the things in life that I believe God had intended for us. He didn't just intend for us to be pure business guys and not have other things in our lives and balance in our lives.
Yeah, healthy ranges. All right, so close us out with, tell us, what do you do for adventure?
My favorite adventure thing in the whole world is dirt biking, and is crazy and extreme as we can be. And ideally, I love it when I'm riding with younger guys and I get to kick their butts. That is my joy.
That's my Yahoo.
Millennials tap out and go, "I've had enough. Take me home, Dad." They all know it. They laugh. And so I do a ton of those every week. I try to get a ride in. And so that's my favorite. And bicycling, there's some other stuff I do just to stay healthy. But it's funny, at this age, there's not a lot of things I'm getting better at. That's the one thing I think I'm still getting a little bit better at. And so that's really fun.